and O's and pure predictions with you today, Andrew. And today we're going to be talking about the AFC. And basically, to give a basic rundown of the show, I'm going to be saying a division. We'll start off with one division, then move on to the next, and the next. We'll give you guys each of our predictions to win that division and why. We'll go over any key points we want to make, any key players we have in mind, and really looking forward to recording this show with you guys today. So, Andrew, the first division we're going to be starting off with today in the AFC is the AFC South. And as my guest, I'm going to throw the floor over to you. Between the Texans, the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Titans, who do you have winning the AFC South this year and why?
All right, well, the first thing I want to say is I really believe that the most important position in football, and the most pivotal one, is the quarterback. And I'm just looking at the AFC South, and what I look at is I look at the quarterbacks, and you see Deshaun Watson for the Texans, man. And I'm not going to lie, I don't want to throw down Gardner Minshew and Tannehill and Phillip Rivers for the Colts, but I think that the Texans have a really solid squad, and they did get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm still going to take the best quarterback in the division, and I truly believe it's going to be Deshaun Watson. So I have the Texans going in, and I'm taking control of that division. The one thing I'm going to say, though, is I really do see that it's going to be a slugfest, because the Colts do have a very talented quarterback in Phillip Rivers, although he's in a decline. So I do see that there's going to be showdowns with them and the Titans. The one thing I'm for sure, though, is the Jaguars are definitely going to be the last one. They're just in complete rebuild, so there's no worried about them. It's just going to be a really big slugfest, but I feel like the team with the best quarterback, the Texans, are going to be on the top at the end of the season.
Yeah, if you heard Deshaun Watson, his name was actually in some contract discussions lately regarding his next move. So he signed a big multi-year contract in Houston, making him the second highest paid quarterback in the history of the National Football League, But going back to the Houston Texans, as you said, Andrew, they lost DeAndre Hopkins. And I think when you look at this Houston Texan team and you ask yourself, what is the possible area of concern? I think that could absolutely be one. The fact that last year towards the end, Bill O'Brien, there were rumors that leaked out in the offseason, basically right when they traded Hopkins, about him and Hopkins not really getting along. He's also... when you look at Bill O'Brien, he doesn't really deserve to have that much power. I don't really ever think, unless your name is Bill Belichick, it's a good idea to have the GM and the head coach of your football team be the same person. But I think the ultimate question with this Houston Texan team going into this season is this. Is Deshaun Watson good enough to make you take the next step? Because when we compare quarterbacks across the league, right, we tend to compare and put Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Lamar Jackson in the same conversation. And even though my eyes tell me Deshaun Watson is, by far and away one of the best quarterbacks in the league, at the same time, he doesn't really have the accomplishments of a Pat Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson because he hasn't won an MVP. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. And when you look at his situation around him right now, I don't really know if I necessarily believe in his head coach and his surrounding pieces enough to have the Houston Texans win the division. I think Deshaun does deserve that money, though. I think he is a top 5 quarterback in the league. He's just going to have to prove it. And I understand why you took the Houston Texans with the argument of, they just have the best quarterback. But I'm actually going to go a different route there. I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts to win this division for a couple reasons. Number one, don't get it twisted. Anyone who's listened to this show knows I'm not a huge Phillip Rivers fan. I think he looked done last year. He really did not look good at all. But I think the fact that he's going to Indianapolis right now, it's a very interesting question in terms of if he's going to succeed or not. And I think there are a couple key factors here and a couple key points in terms of why I'm predicting the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South. Number one, even though the Texans have the best quarterback in the division, I agree with you on that, I think the Colts have the best coach in the division. Even though Bill O'Brien has won the last couple AFC South championships, his in-game decision-making still doesn't really sit that well with me. And I think when you look at this Indianapolis Indianapolis Colt team. Frank Reich led this team to the playoffs 2 years ago during his first season. He knows how to deal with adversity because of last year. Andrew Luck retired right before the season started, and he subbed in Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and that team ended up playing some pretty good football down the stretch with their defense and their offensive line. So you're going to ask me, Zach, if you don't love Phillip Rivers and you think he looked done, how are you going to pick the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South? And it's everything around Phillip Rivers. They drafted a running back, Jonathan Taylor, in the second round from the University of Wisconsin. Huge fan of his. Him and Marlon Mack will create a pretty nice running game. T.Y. Hilton, I'm hoping for a bounce-back season from him. You have the rookie Michael Pittman you drafted from USC as well. One of the best offensive lines in the league behind Quentin Nelson. The dude is just a flat-out monster. Darius Leonard on defense. I think there are plenty of pieces on this Colt offense and defense to have them win the AFC South. And in terms of the Houston Texans, I'm going to have them finishing in second. I just don't trust Bill O'Brien, along with the loss of DeAndre Hopkins, to get the job done. So I have Houston coming in second. Andrew, who do you have coming in second? And, when you compare the two teams, the Colts and the Texans, what stands out to you?
Well, you do put a really good – I really like the lines you took, and I do agree that the Colts do have a lot of good pieces. And, if everything lines up, they got a big run in them. And I'm not – I could see them making the playoffs and winning the division. And I just want to also confirm that actually I would take the Colts third, honestly, in the division, because I really feel like the Titans have something really special going on. And look, Ryan Tannehill is not a flashy name whatsoever, but look at them. They got up to the AFC Championship last year, and I feel like they have a really solid coach in Mike Vrabel. And I really do like the Colts, but I just look at I look at the Titans, and I just see that the weapons they have on the outside, as well as Derrick Henry and their defense, especially with the signing of Jadeveon Clowney today or yesterday, I actually have the Titans coming in second. I see the Colts as I really do like it, what you're saying. I just see them as a dark horse team, a team that can get on fire and can be, if they hit their stride going in, they're going to be a really tough team to get out because, Phillip Rivers, when he's hot, he's got some good weapons. Eric Ebron, he's basically
he actually left. He went to Pittsburgh. They actually did pick. Okay. They actually have Jack Doyle at tight end, who's pretty good, and they drafted Michael Pittman. But
you're right.
Anyway, when you look at this team, though, it's interesting though that you mentioned the Titans, because here's my thing with Tennessee. When I am evaluating quarterbacks, two of the biggest stats I put out there in terms of, all right, like when I'm evaluating a quarterback, what stats do I value the most in terms of judging if they're good or not? And for me, the two stats that stand out the most are completion percentage and yards per pass attempt. And last year, the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill, a guy that in the offseason they gave franchise quarterback money to. And last year he led the league in yards per attempt at around 9. Per his career, it's been around 7. So that just screams regression to me. As good as Derrick Henry is and as great as he was in the playoffs last year, I think people aren't really realizing just how good Derrick Henry was. This guy literally had a 10-game stretch of being one of the best running backs in the history of the NFL. And I just don't really expect for that to continue here along with Ryan Tannehill. I think the Titans decided to pay Ryan Tannehill a contract extension in the offseason along with franchising Derrick Henry. I really didn't agree with that move whatsoever. I really don't think you should handicap yourself and put yourself in a position to have Ryan Tannehill be your franchise quarterback for the next, 2 or 3 years even. They have some pieces I like. I like A.J. Brown. I like, Derrick Henry, obviously. Their offensive line is good, and they picked up Clowney, as you said. They have some names on defense that I really like, but the bottom line is I'm just not really going to trust a team led by Ryan Tannehill to make the playoffs and win the AFC South. I think Houston is more of a bigger threat to Indianapolis. But you have Tennessee coming in second. Why? Are there any other reasons specifically, like why you like them?
I just feel like they have the experience, and I'm not going to lie. I do see something in Ryan Tannehill. Like, his track record isn't that bad. His injury-prone mistakes have been pretty bad, but in Miami, he got Miami to the playoffs. So I think he's definitely a talented quarterback. It's just like, is he going to stay on the field, and is he going to be able to make the throws when he needs to? Because they're going to stack the box on Derrick Henry. So we're going to really see if this contract is worth how much it really is, and we're going to see how worth it Ryan Tannehill is for the Titans. So it's going to be an interesting year, and I just say it because I don't think Ryan Tannehill is that bad of a quarterback. I just feel like injuries, like I just said, plagued him. So look, if he stays healthy, he's a mobile quarterback. He can make throws he can make pretty good throws, and he has good pocket presence. So I see it's going to be a slugfest between the two. One more thing I just got to say is I don't like about Philip Rivers is he makes the playbook a little one-dimensional because he has no mobility, and that's a really bad thing now into this new era of football where it's all these running plays with the quarterback. So that's another thing I just want to look out for is like his decline, his inability to move out of the pocket. That's something that's going to like take a little away from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't get it twisted. I think when I look at the Colts, I agree with a lot of the things you just said. Philip Rivers, at this point in his career, I think we know what he is. Actually, we don't know what he is. We don't know if he could be a starting quarterback in the NFL for the next couple years, especially after what he did last year. But when I look at the Colts this year, I once again really like the surrounding parts around him. I don't think Philip Rivers is going to need to throw the ball a million times in order for the Colts to win the game. Now, does he have any kind of ability in him to, if he sees a throw that he thinks he could make, but, deep down, I think we all know he's not going to be able to make it. Is he going to be able to avoid those key mistakes? That will obviously be a big question with this Colt team, but this Colt team was able to run the ball last year behind their effective offensive line with Mack. They have weapons. Their offensive line is just really good. And on the defensive side of the ball, behind Darius Leonard and Malik Hooker and Bobby Okereke, a nice young linebacker, I think in this AFC South, you don't need to be super talented in order to win this division. I think this is top to bottom one of the weaker divisions in football. And I think when you look at the Colts from this perspective, even though I don't necessarily believe in their quarterback, I do believe in their coach, and I do believe in everything else. Andrew, question for you about the Texans. So you picked them to win the division, and obviously when we see Deshaun Watson getting that contract, there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Houston Texan fan. But tell me, Andrew, what you like besides Deshaun Watson about this Houston Texan team. Or are you just in the boat of, I think Deshaun Watson is so good that he could win the Texans the division by himself, and in a weak AFC South, like, he's really the key part of why I'm picking the Texans. Tell me about them and why you like them.
Yeah, well, that second part that you talked about really is the reason why I look at them and they really don't have that much of a. I mean, look, they have a decent O-line now. It's not terrible. They have Larry Tunsil.
Way too much money spent on it.
I know. Yeah, I mean, look, if he was all pro, that would be worth it, but he's not that. I mean, he's good, above average, but I don't think he's elite, so that's another discussion for another day. But look, we don't know. Look, David Johnson did get injured, but who knows? He might have something left in the tank, and if he does, that's always a plus. They still have Kenny Stills. I'm not sure who their tight end is. They
have a kid, Jordan Akins, who's all right. No one really that stands out in particular for Houston at the tight end spot. They also have Darren Fells, just a lot of older players. Yeah, no one really in particular. I just think when you look at this team, when you combine the fact that last year, let's not forget, this Houston Texan team last year was in the second round of the playoffs, and they had a 24-0 lead against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Bill O'Brien took his pedal off the took his foot off the gas pedal, and the Kansas City Chiefs ended up winning that game by a significant margin. And when you combine that and the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is no longer there, I just think there are a lot of concerns with this Houston Texan team. I don't believe in Bill O'Brien, even though he's won the AFC South a couple times over the last couple of years. I still don't believe him to be a leader of a successful football team. And when I look at the rest of this Houston Texan team, like, Andrew, do you think there are enough weapons? Because David Johnson looked kind of done during his last couple years in Arizona. When you look at the receivers, I like Will Fuller, but he's had trouble staying healthy. They bring in Randall Cobb, who's all right. He had a decent season last year in Dallas. They have Kenny Stills. They also bring in Brandon Cooks, a guy that has always shown potential, but he's never really provided that ability to stay healthy on a consistent basis. And I think when you look at this Houston Texan team, there are just way too many question marks. I don't think their secondary is very good at all. And it's just interesting that you think that Deshaun Watson is good enough to carry them to a division title.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy way, but I really I've seen too much of him and see the potential in him and see how good he can be. And it's too much. It's just too much potential for him that I believe I have to give him the benefit of the doubt compared to the other teams that I feel a little more question marks with their quarterbacks. But look, Zach, I do agree with you. I do like the Colts, and I like your insights and the points that you bring up. I really do see the Colts making a lot of noise. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. I just think the quarterback is a really important position. And look, we're going to see how this plays out. But one injury something can happen. But you know what? It's a really toss-up. I'm just going to be taking the Texans just because of Watson, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, you remember last year, I believe, it was in a game against the Raiders. Like, this dude is just a magician. He had, like, a cleat in his eye, like, the defensive lineman was, like, on the floor, and this guy was able to throw a touchdown into the end zone. He was phenomenal, and the fact that he just got paid, he deserves a good, a lot of the money he just made. So, once again, to recap, I have the Indianapolis Colts winning the AFC South. I think, even though I don't necessarily believe in Phillip Rivers, I think the Indianapolis Colts running game with Marlon Mack, with T.Y. Hilton, with Jonathan Taylor running the ball, and then with T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, and those guys catching the ball, good offensive line. I have the Colts winning the AFC South, and Andrew has the Texans led behind Deshaun Watson, getting the job done. Andrew, we haven't spoken much about the Jaguars. I know none of us really have them making the playoffs, but it's so crazy. I did a segment on these guys a couple of shows ago, and it's just crazy how quickly this whole thing is demised, really. Leonard Fournette and Yannick Ngakoue were let go last week, and the thing is, I don't necessarily know if the Jaguars are giving Gardner Minshew a legitimate chance to succeed, because I've said this a lot about Gardner Minshew, is that last year, if you would have taken his season and you would have given that same exact season to a quarterback that was a first-round pick and was a rookie, like let's say, you give Joe Burrow or Tua or Justin Herbert this year, the season statistically that Gardner Minshew had last year, I think you'd be feeling pretty good about your quarterback. But at the same time, I don't know if the Jaguars, even though they're going to be going with him as the starting quarterback, I don't know if they have given him a fair shot in terms of the pieces around him and everything else going on with that Jaguar team. So they have some pieces. I like DJ Chark, but they're just a dumpster fire right now, getting rid of piece after piece after piece. And what's your take on the Jaguars?
Yeah, well, let's just say if I could place money on them, I would definitely bet them going to be last place. And to add on to your point, I definitely agree with you. I see that Gardner Minshew is definitely not being trusted by the front office, and they're making moves that are just making it look like this is going to be a rebuild season. I'm not really sure why it's that, because they have a really talented defense, and, well, they did, actually.
Yeah.
And
they have some younger players now. They bring in Josh Allen. They had 2 first-round picks, and they selected C.J. Henderson and Kelvon Chason. They also bring in Joe Sherbert, have Miles Jack. So there are still some talented names on the defensive side of the ball. You could just tell the vibes in Jacksonville weren't really great after everything went down, with Tom Coughlin, and the way he left, it really just ended super abruptly, and Leonard Fournette is not there anymore. They're going to give some of their younger players probably now a better opportunity to make some plays. I'm a huge fan of 2 of their rookie receivers, Laviska Shenault and Colin Johnson. I think those are 2 guys that you could expect to see on the field sooner rather than later for this Jaguar team. And I think right now, even though I like Gardner Minshew and a lot of the things that he was able to do last season, I just think he's not really given a fair shot to succeed with this Jacksonville Jaguar team. So once again, I have the Colts winning the South. Andrew has the Texans, and we will be moving on to the next division.
Yeah. All right, Zach, I just have one more question for you about the Jaguars. So I want to just hear your take. What's your take on Gardner Minshew? Do you see him as a future quarterback for the Jags, or do you just see him as a replacement for the next Trevor Lawrence or the next future quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think there are a couple things you have to factor here. Number one, this guy was a 6th-round pick, and he wasn't really supposed to be anything last year. But then you remember in the first game of the season for the Jaguars at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, Nick Foles goes down, and Gardner Minshew is given an opportunity. And once again, I think considering the circumstances, this guy did pretty well with that opportunity he was given. No one really knew who he was. No one really expected anything to get done. They just saw this, guy with the mustache, didn't really expect anything, and all of a sudden, he's winning games and becoming the next one of the stars of the NFL season. Now, it didn't carry over that much. But one thing is this, he is better than Nick Foles, and I think he will provide the Jaguars with some more optimism than Nick Foles gave them during his time. But at the same time, I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but I think given the right opportunity, he could definitely be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just don't see it as a 16-game starter, and ultimately for Jacksonville, that's probably where you're going to have to draft another quarterback, but at least he's going to be a starting quarterback this year. He's going to be given a shot this year. I don't know if it's a fair shot or not, but if he really is that special, let's see him win some games for Jacksonville this season.
All right. Yeah, nice take. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting with this division. I mean, the thing is, Houston, if you were a Texan fan, what were your expectations for this season be? Would they be, AF Super Bowl or bust? Because you were knocking on the door of the Super Bowl last year. We understand you don't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore right now, and the atmosphere just isn't really the same. The vibes isn't really the same with this Houston Texan team. But at the same time, they do have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So if you were a Texan fan, would you consider yourself to be like the third best team in the AFC right now? Would you consider yourself a real Super Bowl contender?
Well, it's hit or miss for them, to be honest, because every year Deshaun Watson is getting paid. You got to hope to make the playoffs and do something with it. He's a generational talent, so they better hope. I mean, that's what my expectations would be if I'm a Texans fan, so nothing changed for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right, so we'll be moving